Hey guys, it's Dylan from 717 Jeepin', and today I'm going to be showing you how to replace your exhaust manifold. So you can see, I got a new one. Well, it's almost brand new. I got it from the junkyard. It has the flex pipes, and it also has an exhaust wrap. But yeah, it's pretty much brand new. I ended up finding the owner of this Jeep on Facebook, and he only had it for a couple months. And during that time, he put on a ton of brand new parts, including this. This is the second or third exhaust manifold that I've put on the Cherokee, so I know what I'm doing. So the first thing you want to do is the air box right here. You need to remove that. So you can, there's like a bit of a clip here. If you put your thumb there and pull up kind of, it'll unclip. Or you can just use a screwdriver and pry it apart, and then that'll come right up. And you take off your PCV valve. And if yours is a dry router like mine, it'll pull right off. Or it might be easier just to twist it off to the side. Now, you get these little clips for the airbox. Unclip them. And if you have a vacuum line there, disconnect that as well. So you pull that off. Pull off the air filter. I'm putting in the new air filter and injectors and a bunch of other stuff, so that'll be coming soon. You'll see that video coming up in a couple days probably. Now that you have the top of the air box off, you get a 13mm socket with a bunch of extensions. And then there are 3 bolts in here that you need to remove. Well, there's 1 nut that's on a stud and then 2 bolts. And you might break some of these bolts. Luckily mine are coming out just fine, but the same style of like where it bolts down is the same for the battery box, and that broke on mine. And while you're undoing these bolts, it's a good idea to put penetrating oil on as many bolts for the header as you can see. I actually ran out of PB Blaster, so I used some PB Blaster lithium grease. I doubt that's going to do anything, but it might help a little bit. Now that these bolts are off, you just pull up the battery box. You can leave the bolts in there so you don't lose them. And now you'll have a lot more room to work. And while the air box is out and I have all this room down here, I'll use some purple power and degreaser and clean up this area. Next, we'll need a 10mm, and if you can find it, then you remove the bolts for the fuel rail here and for the throttle cables. So there's 1 here, 1 here, 1 here, 1 there, and that's like a stud. And then there are 3 for the throttle cables. Now what I like to do, I like to go into the fuse box here in the engine bay and then take out the fuel pump relay. Then I go to start it. And then that should get rid of most of the fuel pressure in the fuel rail. You can still test it by doing this. Going to the Schrader valve here. Yeah, you push that in and no fuel comes out. If you didn't do that, then you would have to press that down. It would shoot fuel everywhere, and it's just a big pain. So next, what I like to do on this Jeep, disconnect the fuel lines here. I think I'll need 2 hands to do this. Okay, got that undone. There's a bit of fuel dripping, but it's not very much. I'll just put a towel under there and let that finish dripping. Now you'll want to pull off these throttle cables here. They're really simple. All you do is just like push on them and they'll pop off. Now you'll lift this whole thing up and move it out of the way. You might only have 2. The third one's for cruise control, so not all Jeeps have that. But now I'll disconnect a bunch of other hoses and stuff. Pretty much anything that connects the intake to the body of the Jeep, you have to disconnect. Like this little vacuum line here. And the vacuum lines are different for different years of Jeeps, so you might not have all this stuff. Now I'm going to disconnect all of the fuel injectors. Trying to figure out how to do this. It's a different style than my other one. This is actually easier than my other one. This one, all you do is just pull up and wiggle and it'll come undone. I got all of them taken off. Now I need to disconnect all the wires that go to the throttle body. Like the throttle position sensor, the IAC, and yeah, that's all that's there. I think I have everything disconnected now. So I'll try to pull up the fuel rail. I'm gonna need 2 hands to do this. I'm gonna set down the camera. I just got the fuel rail taken off, and you can see they really need it. The injectors really need replaced. They're really nasty. If it'll focus. I don't know why that won't focus. They're all like, have gunk built up on the top. And like, yeah, they're pretty bad. I'm gonna set that aside. I'll grab the 1/2 inch again and then take off anything that connects the power steering pump to the intake. So it looks like there are 2 bolts, one right here and then one kind of underneath this pulley that might be difficult to get to. This is actually a 14mm, not a 13. It's starting to rain, so that's not good. But you're gonna need to use a 13mm wrench to get the bolts down here. And it's going into aluminum, so it's corroded, so it's pretty sieved. And you need to use like an extension on your... So you need to use an extension on your wrench to get them loosened up enough to be able to turn it by hand. The newer Jeeps are a lot easier. There are holes in here where I can use a ratchet and a socket instead of a wrench. But I figured out I was able to loosen up the belt a bit and then take out, there was a bolt, a 13mm bolt right back here. So I took that out and I took out the one on the top there. And I took out that one that bolts it to that. And now I'm able to fold this down just enough so I'm able to get into that bolt right there. And I think that's a 14mm. Then once I undo that, then the intake manifold will be pretty much free. Now I'm going to take another 14mm socket, remove all 5 of the bolts on the top, and let's do that. These are coming out a lot better than I thought they would. Like, I'm able to undo it by hand after I broke it free. So that's pretty nice. But I'm going to be replacing these bolts. I'll probably get like grade 8 from the hardware store. I ended up removing this bolt here at the center of the screen and then loosening the one at the very bottom. and that just brought the whole power steering assembly and bracket and everything down, and that's just making it a lot easier to get to that bolt. And speaking of, I'm pretty sure that the stud there goes into like a cooling thing, so coolant might leak out if I accidentally remove the stud. So I'm going to use some MAP gas and heat that nut up really hot and then try to remove it. Here's the moment of truth. I heated it up. It was pretty much red hot. I'm not sure what's loosening up, the nut or the whole stud. Yeah, that's definitely the whole stud that's coming up. Oh well, I guess that doesn't go into the coolant. I might be thinking of my Spitfire or some other vehicle. Not sure what I'm thinking of. I'm gonna cool this off before I touch it. Now you just kind of need to blindly reach under here and feel for the bolts. So I got one now. I'll put up like a diagram showing where all the bolts are, so that'll help a little bit. Or you could use your camera with a flash and get like way up under there. While you're fishing your like 5 extensions under there. It's a pain, but I can't even. It's really tough to get to. But yeah, there's a couple of them underneath, and then that's pretty much all the bolts that need to be taken off. Once you finally get all the bolts out, then the intake will just pop right off, and then the exhaust will just be dangling here. Now there are bolts down there that on this flange that are supposed to come out, but I know that they'll either strip or break. So I'm gonna just attempt to take them off by hand, but if not, I'll just cut them. So after cramming myself down there, I was actually able to get that unbolted without breaking any of the bolts. So here's the manifold. Let's see if we can see any cracks. But yeah, I have never had one of these come apart without breaking. Like, I am really impressed. It's not like it matters or anything, it's just, it would have even been quicker if it did snap. I'm just impressed. For this being driven in Pennsylvania, like, everything gets rusty on the exhaust. So, like, this won't even thread back on now. Oh, there it goes. But, yeah, let's see. Looks like it leaked a bit there. That's the main crack right here. Looks like it was cracked once and someone welded it back up. There's like a, end of like a welding wire there. I don't really see any other. Well, it looks like right in there. It might have been cracked before, but it looks like they re-welded that. But yep, this thing's getting scrapped now. This one will be much better. So now I'm just gonna pull off this old the old gasket. I put this bolt in there to keep the exhaust manifold from falling on me when I unbolted it. Yep, there's that old gasket. I have a new one over here. I ordered this at like 6 p.m. yesterday, and it came before noon today, so with free shipping, so you know, that's really nice. So yep, Jeep 4.0 or AMC 4.0 manifold gasket. That's pretty much all I'll do for tonight, other than getting a Scotch-Brite pad and cleaning up all this. It's really oily here, so it definitely did leak out around the gasket. So I think like that oily stuff here, I'm pretty sure that's Marvel Mistral oil for when I put a bunch of that in. But you can see how much junk and stuff is caked up here. Now I'm gonna go to the hardware store and pick up some of the bolts that I need. I'm at the hardware store now, and I just picked up all the bolts that I need, which are 11 bolts. So, yeah, let's get home and get the manifold on. I also got a cup holder thing in the mail just now, but the only thing is, I have factory power windows, and that switch goes in like right there, but on the inside, and the cup holder thing hits it, so I need to take that out, which kind of sucks. But I'll see how much I use the cup holders. If I don't use them a whole bunch, I'll end up taking them out. So I'm gonna go down like there and then put this gasket in. You put this in the flange, and then you use these bolts and then tighten it down. And I just remembered, don't tighten that down the whole way, because you'll still need to move this different directions to align it good. Once that's all aligned, then you can tighten that down. Just get it like snugged up a bit so you can still move it, but so that the gasket doesn't fall right out. I have one bolt there. Okay, so there are two little pins that kind of stick out, like one kind of around here and one somewhere around there kind of underneath it, and you need to get that lined up. If it's not lined up and you tighten down the bolts, then it'll crack the intake. So make sure you do that. And yeah, put that bolt back in, or put it over the stud if the stud came, or if the stud didn't come out. And then there's supposed to be another one at the same spot here on the other side, but apparently that broke off. So I don't feel like using a bolt extractor and everything, so I'm gonna see if it'll seal up with all the other bolts in besides that one. I think it'll be fine. Or at least work to get me past inspection. But yeah, now work your way around putting in these bolts, and I reused the old washers since at the hardware store they didn't have any really thick ones like this. They only had like normal washers, and I wanted the bigger ones like this to hold it in better. So after you get all these just hand tight, then you want to go and get your torque wrench and torque down all the bolts in a certain order, and you can find that in the picture that I showed a little bit earlier in the video, where I showed where all the bolts are. It has like the torque specs and like which pattern to go in. So that's pretty much it. Now I torqued all them down already, so now I just need to put the throttle body back on. I took that off so I can clean the intake manifold a bit. And I ordered new injectors, so I'm not putting the old ones back in, so I'm not going to be putting in the fuel rail right now, but I'll be putting in everything else. I was planning on showing like every single step along the way, but it's so hot out right now that I just don't really have the energy to record everything I'm doing and talk about it the whole time. But yeah, now I'm just going to plug in all these vacuum lines that I disconnected. And actually, I'm not going to be putting in the throttle body. I'm getting a bored out throttle body, I think 62 or 63 millimeter, I forget which one I'm getting. But as soon as that comes in the mail, I'm shipping this back out to them for a core. So yeah, I'm not going to be putting this on just yet. But I'll just put in these bolts hand tight just so I remember where they go and I don't lose them. I actually am putting on the throttle body and injectors because I'll just make a video putting on the new injectors and throttle body, and I'll just have like a complete tear down and install video instead of just installing it to make it a little bit more interesting. And remember, these bolts are going into aluminum, so you don't want to tighten them down too much. Usually you'd want to put new O-rings on the fuel injectors, but I'm just putting them in just for show. And here's my new air filter. You know, I got the cheapest one on Amazon. I think it's all back together now. The whole power steering assembly is back on. Air box, all the connectors for the electrical stuff, all the vacuum lines, injectors. So let's see if it starts. I'm not going to run it too long because the O-rings are dirty on the injectors. I don't want it leaking gas right over the exhaust. But I'll just make sure it starts up and doesn't leak. That's a lot quieter than before. There's a bunch of water on the exhaust manifold, like the cover for it, the exhaust strap. So that's what's smoking right there, so it's not anything major. It's not really happy when I give it gas, so I'm not sure what that is. It runs way quieter than before. And there's still a bit of Marvel Mixture oil in the whole system, so it's smoking a bit out the exhaust too. But yeah, that smoke there's just the water coming off of the exhaust wrap. So yep, that's how you fix the exhaust manifold on a Jeep Cherokee. If it was a little bit cooler outside, I would have done like a more in-depth video, but it's just way too hot out. Like, it's cloudy out today and the heat index is still almost 100 since it's so humid out. But yeah, that's it for this video. So if you liked it, remember to like and subscribe. And thanks for watching. Bye.